About the arguments by proponents of Proposition 8. They have this thing called the ABCs. It's actually sort of ABC and R. The A is activist judges. They're saying, I think I've seen it phrased as a handful of San Francisco judges think this, but the rest of us feel different. Don't let them decide. Well, as Kate said, first of all, these are not activist judges, okay? 6 Republicans and a Democrat, and the chief judge, who's a very, very notable jurist, a staunch Republican, but very, very well-respected, is the person who authored this opinion. And then the activist judge piece is the part where it is a little hard to soundbite the response, but because you have to explain why judges play a role in our form of government and why it's important to think about what they did and what they think. Okay, B. This one is, I think, really important. We hear this all the time. B stands for benefits. They say, look, you all have domestic partnerships. You all have all the protections that you need. There's nothing different. Why in the world do you need to, get to marriage when you have domestic partnership? Okay, so here's the response. Marriage is not just about a bundle of rights. Marriage is a universally recognized symbol of commitment and of shared responsibility. And everybody knows what marriage is. Not everybody knows what domestic partnership is. So first of all, you're thinking, okay, well it sounds like it's less good than marriage. Some real life consequences. NCLR had some clients down in San Joaquin Valley, a couple who have a daughter. They had to rush her to the emergency room one night. And they wanted to both be with her, and they were explaining, well, we're registered domestic partners. And the hospital would not let more than one mom in. They wouldn't even let them swap out. The daughter was screaming her head off because she was scared and she wanted her other mom. So a married couple doesn't have to produce their marriage license. Nobody asks any questions about, what is needed, who you are, how you belong to each other. Another story around this to explain it comes from somebody on the NCLR staff who was talking to, she's getting married in next month, and she said, I've been talking to my soon-to-be father-in-law about this, and he's getting there, but he wasn't totally on board. And he said, why do you need marriage? You guys are protected, and the staffer said, look, I know you love us exactly the same as you love your other children and their spouses. I know that. But I really want the rest of the world to know that. There's words that we use for that. There's father-in-law, there's daughter-in-law, there's brother-in-law, there's family words. And you can't get that from anything other than marriage. Marriage has traditions that are attached to it, going back centuries. And domestic partnership, nobody really knows. So that is the answer to why benefits really doesn't cut it. The final one, the C, is about children. So the opposition is saying, well, Proposition 8, if it doesn't pass, then we're going to have our kids being educated in schools about, quote, gay marriage. Now this one is completely made up. There is nothing in Proposition 8 that says anything about education or children. And my daughter's gone through the public school system. Marriage has never been on the curriculum, one way or the other, that I have ever heard of. It's a scare tactic. So, something that they've made up that gets at that sort of a fear, but is not based in any kind of reality. So then there's the R. The R is about religion. So, Lisa Cisneros, the NCLR staffer, is here, and she was just saying that, I think it was a bishop in Monterey County, went on a local television station and said, well, this means that we'll have to marry people in the church, or we'll get sued. Again, completely false. This is about civil marriage. It's about the government issuing licenses for marriage. No church is going to be forced to marry people within, if it's against their tenets. That being said, there are some churches that are against this for sure, but plenty of churches and religious groups that are very much in favor of equality, because that's consistent with their belief system. Okay, let me give you some other things to think about in coming up with how you want to talk about no on 8 and how you stop the marriage ban. Let me say a word about that, first of all. There's some confusion about Proposition 8 and which way you're supposed to vote. So even those who are on our side aren't sure whether to vote yes or no. So make sure you're saying no on Proposition 8. Stop the marriage ban. Okay, because the word ban kind of resonates with the elimination of rights, and that's a very powerful, short way to say that. Stop the marriage ban. Barbara?
Yeah, I don't know if this is filtered out to you yet, but a good friend of mine has worked with some people to create a logo and a slogan to love not 8. So, vote no on Prop 8. And it's so helped pass it's harder to remember negative, and that just is so positive. So hopefully that'll be around more for people as a possible option.
I think that sounds really great. Just one quick thing, though, about some of the feedback we've gotten on words that are not working as well with undecided people. And those are the people we're really trying to reach.
Love.
So love is great, but hate is bad. When
No, love not 8.
I know, love not 8, but it's sort of playing on the hate or discrimination or, we're seen as whiners versus elimination of a fundamental right to marry. So again, just...
that is the most clever way I've seen it phrased, though, because we've had a lot of people playing on this, vote no on 8, eliminate hate, that sort of thing. And to Donna's point, a lot of folks in the undecided universe who aren't sure how they feel about Prop 8, but maybe even are leaning yes, don't see themselves as not liking gay people, or don't see themselves as homophobic, or don't see themselves as bigots. And given that so many of you are going to be talking to that undecided universe, it's really important to sort of do your whole Zen breathing thing and just come from that place with them. And I do think that's an interesting way of framing it that I actually like better than, I've been getting all everybody's t-shirts and self-made bumper stickers, and the hate 8 thing people sort of throw together. And we like that because we want to characterize them in a certain caricature, but that's not the way to sway the undecideds. And we have to give them room to be uncomfortable and vote no. And there's a way to do that around the whole elimination of rights. Regardless of how you feel about the idea of gay people marrying, we do not eliminate rights for an entire category of people in this state.
The other part of it I just want to say is it helps you remember how to vote.
Yep.
That's the thing, too.
And I do think that there's a word for that in terms of how the brain works. And I do think we need to really reinforce that. And if that's helping, that's the best encapsulation of it that I've seen.
Joe?
Don't we also need people who are on our side, but somewhat apathetic to go out and vote, or who don't really know? And I just want to give a little example here. My partner and I were shopping for socks for our wedding. Irish-colored socks. We were in Sacramento. We went into probably 10 different stores. Sacramento's not quite like San Francisco. And every store we went into, we said, we're getting married, we need these socks. And we got very positive responses from people. My partner, being the smart cookie that she is, followed up with, then you need to vote no on 8. And people said, what? And then we tell them what we were talking about. But we need to remember to do that, I think. And I think that's another piece, because we're going to lose a lot of people who won't know what they're doing, or don't care, or don't know that there's something really at risk here.
That raises a really good point, and one that I've been struggling with because I talked to a lot of my friends who are civil rights people, and the answer is often, you guys are fine, that's never going to pass. So there's a certain complacency, and so we need to get people to understand, no, they haven't started. Kate's going to talk about the campaign and all of that, but those ads are going to start rolling pretty soon, and those polls are going to get maybe shaken up a bit. So telling people, listen to me. California has done some pretty horrible things in the past. We're very much capable of doing it. We cannot afford to be complacent. It's one message. The other one is about getting down to the bottom of the ballot. So there's lots of people who are really energized to get out and vote for Obama, which is great, and we think that there's going to be some real good correlation between Obama voters and a no on 8 vote. But we need to remind them, you need to make it down to that part of the ballot and check the box, because in this battle, a a blank box doesn't count as